You're listening to Boobies and Newbies, brought to you by the Frolic Podcast Network. Welcome to Boobies and Newbies, the podcast that asks novice romance readers to think outside the dick in a box and brave the unbridled world of erotica. I'm your host, Kelly Reynolds, and this month is all about writers. As I'm sure many of you already know, November is National Novel Writing Month, or NaNoWriMo for short. That time of year when writers from around the globe painfully struggle to complete a 50,000 plus word novel in just 30 days. If you have no idea what I'm talking about, trust me, by November 6th, your Instagram and Twitter feeds will be flooded with writing prompts, concepts, and hashtag NaNoWriMo. To honor my fellow creatives and all of their achievements in the world of romance writing, this month's roundup of episodes is all about the writer's experience. That means not one, not two, but 3 steamy spotlight interview episodes, all leading up to our IG Live book club chat on Wednesday, November 24th. And then it's on to the 12 days of Boobsmas in December. Season's readings. My guest today is USA Today bestselling author Vanessa Vale. Vanessa's best known for her Steamy Cowboy books, and if you keep up with Boobies and Newbies on Instagram, you'll know that our latest book club read was Rough, book 1 in Vanessa's Wolf Ranch series co-authored by Renee Rose. Here to discuss the books, the bad boys, and what's up next for her, please join me in welcoming Vanessa Vale.
Hello.
Hello. Sorry for that long-winded introduction, but we made it through. You're here, and now we can talk about all things book-related. And I read a rumor, and when I say a rumor, I mean your author's bio, where you talked about how you love a good Instant Pot pressure cooker recipe. So as somebody who's never actually used a pressure cooker, I have to know, what's the hype all about?
Well, I have to correct you slightly that I don't have an Instant Pot. I have a true pressure cooker.
Okay.
And I know there's a really big difference. So those Instant Pot users out there, I'm not speaking about an Instant Pot because I don't know how to use one. But a pressure cooker is awesome because it cooks food super duper fast. So if you like cooked carrots, you have to have them done in 2 minutes. If you wait any longer, they pretty much dissolve. So it's for all those people who are crockpot users but forget to turn it on in the morning.
Oh my gosh. Well, and here I was thinking that an Instant Pot and a pressure cooker were the same thing.
I think the Instant Pot does more than pressure cooking. So it does have a pressure cooker built in, but other stuff. So I'm sure some of your readers are going to chime in about Instant Pots after this and have some great recipes for you. But my true pressure cooker sits on top of the stove and has a lid that you flip on, and it makes a lot of hissing noises, and then it cooks food real fast. Ooh. And yum. So our in-house favorite is macaroni and cheese or chicken noodle soup. I've done beef stew and things like that, but I always like people writing me with their favorite recipes because, like I say, I never remember to turn the crock pot on in the morning. So I have to hustle in the afternoon, and a pressure cooker is a great way to do that.
I'm notorious for not so much with the crock pot, but I feel like everybody has like little inconsistencies like this in the kitchen. For me, it's microwaving something in the microwave and then forgetting it's there and then going about my entire day and returning to find like that cup of coffee that needed a reheat or the bowl of mac and cheese that needed a reheat that is still in the microwave like 10 hours later. So
I found a bowl of broccoli one time that had been there for a couple of days, and we were trying to figure out what smelled so bad in our house. So I can completely relate.
Oh gosh, yeah. But I will say I've definitely done the crock pot thing where like you prep it, everything's in there, and then you forget to turn it on and you come back, 7 hours later from work, and there is a giant thing of meat still sitting there, still uncooked. So maybe the pressure cooker is something I need to invest in.
Well, you get a gold star for actually putting the food into the crock pot. I remember the crock pot in general too late in the day to actually use it.
Got it. Okay. Okay. I don't know if that's a gold star or if that's even worse, that I've put the food in and then it just goes to waste sitting there. Kitchen faux pas. This is why I order a lot of takeout in general. But, well, okay. And seeing as the weather's changing and we're heading into the holidays, I feel like soup or mac and cheese would be a great recipe to try out.
Yeah, you can't go wrong with either, I think. I mean, unless you're gluten-free, probably I think everyone can go for either. We've just figured out fast and easy recipes to make with them, and it gets done so fast. And anything that's fast and one pot is great.
Yeah, exactly. That's the best. Is anything you can just like throw it all in one pot and that's it. Like that is the ideal way of cooking in my house, at least. But okay, enough about food. Although anybody who listened to this podcast know that I can't go an episode without discussing something food related. But we are here to talk about romance. So I'd love to know about you and your relationship with romance, both as a writer and reader. So when and where did it all begin?
I read romance. I read a lot of romance. I love it. I read it all the time. I read maybe too much, some people say, but
no.
I know. That's what I was just thinking. If you could see me, you'd see me frowning. Like that's a preposterous thing. So I do read a lot of romance. If I wanted to mix it up, I'd throw a mystery in there. I love a good mystery.
Me too.
Especially English ones where there's the moors and something out there on the wind-swept lands, and I want some tea and cookies to go with it and keep me cozy. But then I toggle back to romance again. I read romance, I don't know, maybe since college or so, I guess. And I found it and then got hooked. This was back in dating myself. This was way back in the day when you read a paperback and that was it. But I got into writing romance on a dare 20 some years ago at work. We were talking about romance books and the dare was, how hard can it be to write one? Well, yeah, I took that dare to heart and just kept going.
I love that. And you know what's funny is I think you're the second author I've interviewed for the podcast who really began on a dare or a challenge from somebody to write. And I love that. I mean, hey, whatever motivates you, right?
Right. Well, and I went to art school. I was an artist. And so my background is graphic design. It's not writing. I think that probably all of my high school English teachers can agree to that wholeheartedly. It wasn't something that I longed to do. I never journaled. I never wrote a diary. I never wrote little stories when I was younger. It was just something that I picked up because I like to read the books and then ran with a dare pretty hardcore.
Wow. Yeah, that is quite the switch from graphic design and art to writing, let alone writing, full length romance novels. I mean, that is quite a challenge indeed. So kudos to you for taking it on and never giving it up.
Well, it's good too, because I do my own graphics and my own covers and everything. So nice. I have my own in-house graphic designer, which helps a lot because I don't have to share the information in my brain with somebody else, which is really hard to do.
Well, and so as a reader, what are some of the stories that you're like particularly drawn to in romance?
Well, I think everyone probably reading romance loves alpha males. So that's pretty much a given. Lately, I think I switch up a little bit. There was a stretch there that I loved MC or motorcycle club romance. Loved it. I still am on to that kick. But I think being in lockdown for so long, I have lost my need for any kind of dark romance, any kind of anything that's really harsh or edgy. I don't see I have triggers as much as I like, I don't know, insta love more than angst at this point. So I find a lot of MC books are maybe a little bit darker than I like. They're all great, but I'm just looking for something refreshingly light because I think life can be a little tough right now. But I also enjoy mafia. Again, the same thing. Some can go really dark, but I think it's those alpha guys that I personally am never going to come across here in the Wild Wild West. There's not a lot of motorcycle clubs or mafia types.
Sure.
So for me, it's true fantasy. I love to read a good romance and get sucked into that fantasy that's super hot, super alpha, super strong guys. Yeah.
And what's so funny is your answer brings up a couple things in my brain. One is, I don't know what's wrong with me for the fact that during the last we're still very much in a pandemic, right? We're still very much going through like a darker time in our world. And I don't know why all of a sudden that has attracted me more to dark romance, and especially bully romance. I feel like that's been my go-to lately. And, I'm somebody who so often talks about how I like to see, as much as I love a fantasy and romance, I do like to read a lot of more realistic romance where I'm reading stories where I'm like, oh, this could be me. This could be my friends. Like, this could be, very much like real life experience. But I don't know. It's so funny that lately that has not been the case, because I've absolutely been binging these bully romances and dark mafia romances one after another. And that is, of course, by no means something I want to emulate in my real my real relationships.
Right.
But
That's the great thing about romance is it's such a
yeah.
wonderful fantasy. You can get lost in anything you want. I think based off of what's selling these days and what's hot in the different retailers, it's
Hmm.
showing that dark romance is really killing it. And I don't think you're alone in that. Fortunately, I am on the other side,
Yeah.
so I help support all the other authors who write less than dark. So I think it's the great thing about romance is there's something for everybody. And I think it
Yes.
emulates real life where love is different for each person and it doesn't matter how it is portrayed or you want it, it's okay. So whatever you read, whatever your fantasy is, it's okay. Love is love. And I think I just want everyone to be happy these days.
Yeah, and whatever makes you happy, reading, go for it. Like the
Right.
other thing I thought about too was like why are there no like comedic takes on mafia or motorcycle romance? Because I feel like if I read a mafia rom-com, I would like be living my best life. So I'm just going to put that out there and hopefully manifest it into existence.
I think that's a great idea. Since I write cowboys, it's probably not going to be me, but keep me posted because I'd love to read it too.
Yeah, so often I find that there's like certain combinations of tropes that I just haven't seen yet where I'm like, "Oh, well I like this motorcycle romance. I like a good rom-com. Where's my rom-com motorcycle romance? I don't know." Someday.
Someday, yeah, we'll just get back together when it comes in, and you can use that as your book club book
Yeah.
read.
Exactly, exactly. Well, and so, the goal of the podcast has always been to introduce newbie romance readers to the genre, and like we've kind of just touched on, create sort of a safe space to discuss what we love about the world of romance, the fantasy, what you might be drawn to in romance that isn't necessarily a part of your everyday life. And I've found from over 100 episodes at this point that there are so many misconceptions or stereotypes about the romance genre that tend to prevent a lot of readers from sort of testing the waters, so to speak. So I'm curious, coming from you as a romance author, I'd love to know what's one misconception you think that non-romance readers of the world tend to get wrong about romance?
I think people get it wrong that it's wrong.
Yeah.
I think people
Period.
see it as not something that's not okay. And the romance people, true hardcore romance readers, poo-poo that or just scoff at that super easy. But those newbie people out there who are listening might be tentative and taking a step into it. Remember, at least for me, I think that romance authors write to fantasy to bring things like in TV that are never maybe going to happen in the real world and push it a bit to make it enjoyable in reading format. So, for example, I write a lot of menage in the
Mm-hmm.
case of male, female, male, or MFM menage, where the two men are all about the woman. And that's a pretty hefty step for a lot of people in the real world. I'm not sure about you, but I don't really know anyone personally who is in that kind of relationship. But I think every woman out there can agree that having two guys be hot and eager for them would be great. I'm married. I've been married for over 20 years to one guy, and Mr. Vale doesn't really want another guy in our bed. And I don't really either. But it's okay to really enjoy reading about it.
Mm-hmm.
I use the analogy of Harry Potter. I know this sounds really strange,
I'm
comparing
so
Harry Potter
curious
to
to where that's going
a
to go.
menage romance, in that Harry Potter flies on a broomstick, right? He goes off and they fly around and stuff. Well, I'm sure millions of Harry Potter readers have fear of heights. And they still read the books and watch the movies where Harry Potter's flying on a broomstick. It doesn't mean that they're not going to enjoy those scenes just because they have a fear of heights when he's flying around Hogwarts up on his broomstick. It doesn't mean they're not going to read it and they're not going to enjoy it because they have a fear of heights. Well, just because you don't want to do menage yourself doesn't mean you can't enjoy reading about it. It's okay to read things that might be considered different or inappropriate or whatever. Well, like we said, because of this pandemic going on, whatever makes you happy or whatever melts your
Yeah.
butter is okay to read. So if you aren't interested in having two cowboys in your bed, it's still okay to read my books.
Well, and on the flip side, maybe you do read a book where you find something that you're like, hey, you know what? That's something I hadn't even really thought about exploring in the bedroom with my partner or partners. Like, maybe this is something to try. Like, that's perfectly fine too. I know a lot of people who get a lot of great stimulation and inspiration out of reading romance. Or one of my favorite things that I hear a lot of couples talk about too is kind of bringing romance reading into their relationship and just reading a romance and discussing it with your partner, which I think alone can be really sexy.
Yeah. And again, to age or date myself, I'm at the age now where sometimes ladies need a little bit of extra something to, melt their butter. So if a good romance book's going to help with that and it leads to sexy and fun times in the bedroom with whomever your partner is, then great. I get emails from readers saying thank you, or they say their husband or their partner or whomever thanks me because
Mm.
they had a little extra fun because they read my books, or the reader read the books and the pleasure extended to others.
They melted that butter.
They melted it a lot.
I love that. That would be an email that if I was writing a book would make me feel really good.
Yeah, it's great because they saw it for what it was and they enjoyed it in more ways than one.
We would be remiss if we did not discuss cowboys because
Right.
naturally, you are renowned for your steamy cowboys. And obviously, we discussed Rough, book one in the Wolf Ranch series for our October book club. So I do have a few questions about the world of cowboys in general, but let's boil it down to the simplest one, which is why cowboys? What draws you to writing cowboys time and time again?
Right. Well, I live in the wild, wild west, and so there's a lot of cowboys around here. I spent a number of years in Montana, and so I write, or almost all of my books are based in Montana, so I
Mhm.
can see it in my mind. I've seen real life cowboys out and about, and whew, yeah, they're real, and so they are great. The cowboy romance books that I have read in the past, I've always enjoyed. However, when I started writing cowboy romance, there wasn't a lot of steamy or really hot cowboy romances. There were tons and tons of sweet, or so on the heat scale, maybe like a 0 behind closed doors, or like a Hallmark
Right.
level of cowboy romance, to maybe a little bit of kissing or slightly open door romance scenes, but nothing truly steamy. And so I wanted to fill a niche for steamy cowboy romance, and I did. So the reason why I chose cowboys is because as an author, it's really important to sort of pick a so-called swim lane, or a specific genre or area that readers will know you for. So
Mhm.
obviously, since you said I'm renowned as the cowboy romance author, yay, it's working. But sometimes people are known for writing kinky instead of a specific thing like cowboys. A friend of mine, Renee Rose, who I co-write the Rough and the Wolf Ranch series with, she's known for writing steamy books, and so she crosses genres from mafia to shifters, and so she's known for that. So anyway, writing into a specific genre of romance was really important to me because I wanted to be known for it, and so thankfully I am, and I just keep on going. And cowboys I don't know, they just do it for me.
I was gonna say, and you like them too. I mean,
I
it's
do.
not like you're, just writing something because it'll sell. It's also combined with the combination, of that. You actually really enjoy cowboys.
I do, and it's really important, I think, to write kind of what you know. I'm not a
Sure.
cowboy. I'm not married to a cowboy. I don't live the cowboy lifestyle, but I've been immersed in it enough to be able to pull it off. So, for example, those MC books that I love to read, I don't feel like I'm the expert in those. I probably would have them slightly skewed. I will say I'm not a horse expert. So my historical cowboy romances, I always have to ask friends who are skilled equestrians or have horses of their own, because I just say the brown horse, and usually they give me a little bit more direction on that. So if you've read any of my books with horses in them and you see any errors, they are all mine.
And and we know from this podcast specifically that I am also not what I would call a horse girl. I it's not something I grew up with, and so when I do read books that have very in-depth descriptions of horses, I immediately condense them in my brain to also be the brown horse. Like
Right.
it's not something that connects with me specifically. However, I do appreciate the element of research that does go into something like that. So,
Right. I try to be fairly accurate, but usually vague. So I usually do kind of like the redirect, like, oh, squirrel or shiny object over here, to redirect them away from the horse that I'm not that knowledgeable about.
brilliant. Love it. Well, and so, considering I did want to point out the fact that you have written both historical and contemporary cowboy romances, and my experience with reading historical cowboys is very limited. However, I will say I am excited that we are doing a historical cowboy Christmas book for the podcast in December. So it's a newer experience to me. But as somebody who's written both, historical and contemporary cowboy romances, I'm curious, what have been maybe some of the more interesting tidbits or research facts you've picked up about cowboys across the ages while writing your
Right.
books?
Again, fortunately, I'm able to, I can't say dummy down, but I'm able to vague out quite a bit just so that I focus on the important parts of the story, which is hot cowboys. But there really isn't tons and tons of differences in writing historical versus contemporary cowboy romance, other than one, there's no electricity.
Mm.
Hay bales didn't exist, so you can't like have some sexy times on a hay bale back in 1885. They didn't exist yet, and any kind of adult toys,
Mm.
in most cases, didn't exist, and other items tied to those kinds of things. So more advanced, sexy times. There, you have to be more inventive in historical times. Ladies wore dresses. So it's easy to flip them up. But otherwise, there isn't tons and tons of differences between the two. And I try to keep them as minimal as possible. No cars. Oh, transportation is AKA horses.
Horses.
So
Brown horses. All the
yeah, a
colored
lot of brown
horses.
horses. So I try to skip any kind of transportation based scenes as much as possible.
Okay. Okay. Interesting. So funny. Easy access, flipping up of the skirts, but lack of hardware in terms of lack of
Right.
access to sexy toys.
And
Okay.
usually, and there was no contraception back then. So, other than more natural methods. And
Mm.
so, you have to craft a story around wanting children.
Interesting. Okay. That makes
So
sense.
it's really important for me that, again, I don't write dark. So I really want to make sure that if a woman, or a couple are intending to get pregnant
Hmm.
or having any kind of sexy times, that if a pregnancy could occur, it is something that's wanted.
Yeah, no, I think it's something to point out too. And I think that's something that we find in a lot of historical romance in general is just sort of because of the time and because of the expectations for, both gender and relationships like during that time that is, typically a part of what the couple is looking for is, they are looking to get married. They are looking to have children. So yeah, that's interesting to point out. I appreciate
And
that.
also in my historicals too, you just prompted me to something because I haven't written historical in a while, is that even though my books are steamy scale of like 1 to 5, like 6, I believe, and you can email me if I'm wrong, readers, I believe that I have every single one of my historical books have them either, almost in all cases, married, or if not, on the way to get married before they have any kind of sexy times.
Okay. Do you think that's specifically because it's like a product of the times of like
A
when
product
it
of the
takes
times.
place?
I think it also shows the honor behind
Mm,
the hero.
yeah.
I I think the most attractive heroes are those who are honorable, historical and contemporary. And I think back in the day, an honorable man would not. Um, I don't know how steamy your wording can be in your
Oh, you
in your
go for it.
podcast.
You go
So the
for it.
sexy times that occur in the past, I want to ensure that the hero is honorable enough that he has thought of and has put a ring on her finger before he goes there. So I think it's really, really crucial back then to do so. Otherwise, I don't think it comes across as historically accurate to the values of the day. I'm not saying that people didn't have relations
Sure.
prior to marriage. However, I think that it really impacts a reader's and my personal impact, a view of the hero or heroes in a story.
Yeah, well, and you brought up honor, and I do think that, whether anybody listening has read cowboy romances, historical or contemporary, I do think that honor is definitely a theme or it's something that I would apply to when I do think of a cowboy. And maybe I don't know if that's, everybody's notion, but I know that when I think of cowboy romances, and I think part of it is tied to the fact that aside from your books, I have read cowboy romances that tend to be on the more closed door, less erotic side. And I think part of that has always kind of in my brain tied to some sort of there being an honor attached to like a cowboy hero. And that is something that I've always thought about. So I think that makes sense that, maybe that is why there are so many cleaner, for lack of a better word, cowboy romances out there, is because of the idea of honor attached to like the American dream, the Western frontier, a man making his own fortune. So I think that's maybe that's why there are so many that are on the less steamy side when it comes to cowboy romances.
I agree. Since I live out west, and you go to any of the museums that are
Hmm.
out there that have pictures, because they do have photographs from the late 1800s of settlers coming to the western areas, and I would assume that every romance book that's written probably does not depict the reality of women in the wild wild west back in the day. I couldn't imagine doing laundry over a cauldron out on the plains, etc., and dying in childbirth and things like that. So I think that we as readers, myself included, want that honorable hero back then, and making it a fantasy,
Hmm.
because if we were able to go back in time, I don't want to ever do laundry over a boiling cauldron. I want that hero to sweep me off my feet and have my clothes already pressed and perfect. So,
Oh,
uh,
wouldn't that be great? Yeah, I mean, when
yeah,
I think about the realities of that time, I basically picture the game Oregon Trail, which they made us play in school, and then I think now it's like a card game you can play. But the whole joke was that everybody would die of dysentery before you even made it to Oregon. So,
yeah, I would have died in childbirth. So, pretty much, again, back to that fantasy of hardy, alpha, honorable cowboys is, I think, a dream in any generation. I think contemporary cowboys are the same way.
yeah.
I think they can be rougher and gruffer just because of the contemporary themes that are out that exist that didn't exist back in the day.
Right, right. And they're always the right amount of dirty, like in terms of not the
Dusty,
yes,
dusty.
yes, like physical dirt, like they've got a nice sheen to them and like maybe
Yes.
a smudge, but you know what? Other than that, ready to
Yes,
go.
that is the fantasy. They don't smell like animals that they've just been, castrating or whatever. Yeah, it's all fantasy.
Yep. Now, you've authored several books with Renee Rose, including Rough. And in a previous Steamy Spotlight interview, I chatted with Sarah Smith and Sky McDonald, who together write as Sarah Sky. about the process of co-authoring a book. And so I'd love to just know a little bit about how the process worked for you and Renee when writing the Wolf Ranch series.
Yeah, well, Renee is lovely and easy to work with. So that really helps when you have such a fabulous co-writing friend to work with. Renee is known for her shifter books,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm known for my cowboy books. It's kind of like Reese's peanut butter cups, that chocolate and peanut butter put together. Writing cowboy shifters really worked well with writing with her. The combination hopefully had her readers and our readers being able to bridge over to the other side pretty easily.
Mm.
Um, when we write, we wanted to have the same elements that were found in her shifter books and in my cowboy books. Again, those strong alpha males that were dominant and honorable. The shifter titles add a little extra bit to that, a little extra something, because the shifters have this ability to instantly know who their heroine is,
Mm-hmm.
who their mate is immediately, like insta love to the extreme, which I really enjoy, because don't we all want a guy to not sniff us out, because that sounds kind of weird, but see us across the crowded mall and say, "You're mine," and come over and then sweep you off your feet?
Yeah.
I do. Again, like I said, I've been married for 23 years, but I still want that to happen. So I think that adding the shifter element really pushes that even further. And then you add the cowboy fabulousness, and so it's great together. I don't even think I actually answered your question. I got distracted by hot guys.
Oh, I mean, that happens on a daily basis for me. So no, I love the idea of, I will say Insta-Love's not like my go-to, but when I do read it, I'm like, oh, wouldn't this be nice to just skip dating and just go straight to like, I love you. This is it. Done. Like, oh, I mean, as a single woman who does date, like this would be a lot easier.
Yeah, if you could find a shifter who knew immediately that you were it, that
Yep.
would just move things right
Be
along.
so much quicker, save me so much time and anxiety.
You wouldn't have to put makeup on to go out every day.
No, ever again. But no, I one of the things that I'm always fascinated by when it's multiple authors working together is just sort of like how to divide up the work. Like, whether
Okay.
it's, writing dual POV and like each person writes from a different point of view, or does somebody specialize more in the dialogue versus the
Yeah.
narration. So I'm curious, like what does it work out for you and Renee?
Well, I think you probably get different answers depending on who you have coming on your program and answering. So for Renee and I'd say we're pseudo plotters. We come up with the gist to begin with, but we
Okay.
sort of pants our way through it because the characters really talk to us and steer us very strange ways. But say, for example, we'll kick off the book with the first chapter and I'll write it, and then I'll say it's done, and then she'll read it and then add her words over top of mine. So our words overlap each other, and then she'll continue on into chapter 2 or a scene, the next scene or whatever, and we'll kick them back and forth. So by the time we finish a book, every part of it is overwritten by both of us, so both our voices are merged. I think that we have slightly different writing styles, and so if we alternated, it would be very clear, I think, to the reader who wrote what.
Each chapter. Yeah, got it.
Yeah, and I know that I've talked to some authors who each author writes from a different character's POV.
Yeah.
And I think that's a great idea. But again, I think that Renee's writing style and mine are slightly different enough where I think it would become kind of skewed.
Mm.
Although I haven't tried it. We haven't tried it. We just we like our method. And also it's great to spur each other on. So if she writes something, it prompts me to add a little bit more in-depth words to what she has. And so we actually bulk up the story a bit because we inspire each other to flesh out the story even more.
I love that. No, it reminds me of like we would do this exercise in a creative writing class where you'd write a sentence and then you'd pass the paper to the next person and they'd add a sentence and then so on and so on. And by the end, because it was a high school creative writing course, there was probably a lot of inappropriate stuff about like toilets. But
well, we have inappropriate stuff, not about toilets, but other inappropriate
yeah.
things. So it's the exact same concept with two people and we get paid for it.
Yeah, so a more successful take on my high school writing class. So
The concept is the same, though. You're exactly right.
well, you mentioned a little bit earlier, and I do want to bring it back because I recently listened to your interview with the No Shelf Control podcast, and I was excited to hear you talk about something else that you will find in a lot of your books, along with cowboys, and that's ménage. And I also have a deep appreciation for reading ménage romances. And I think you touched on this a little bit when we were just kind of covering like misconceptions people might have about the genre, but what specifically appeals to you about ménages, both as a reader and a writer? And because maybe it's the same thing, maybe it's something different.
As a writer, I like to push the story enough where it is truly fantasy for a reader, where someone sits down and gets settled in with the book and gobbles up the pages because they just are put into the role of the heroine and want to be her. I think the reason why I like ménage is because we get two heroes or more. So I've written some with three heroes in a book for one heroine. Like I said earlier, in the real world, I'm not sure if I could handle more than Mr. Bale. I think that having two guys would be really frustrating unless he was like a cook and like a house cleaner and all the other things that we don't tackle that this person could fill in. But having two guys devoted and focused and obsessed with the heroine is really, really hot, at least in my opinion. And I think people who read ménage want that. They want, again, I write male, female, male ménage. So there's other combinations. So I'm only speaking to that. But
Right.
any other combination is the same concept for whatever. Again, melt your butter, whatever does it for you, that's totally great. But I'm speaking to male, female, male. And so when there's two guys who are attracted and drawn to you and want you and want to touch you and please you and satisfy you, having two of them do it at the same time, having two mouths, two sets of hands, and two other things is really a fantasy and hopefully does it for my readers. It does it for me as a reader myself. Heck yeah.
And just the concept of having one man, I mean, speaking specifically as like a heterosexual woman, it's like having one man that's like concentrated, devoted to, obsessed with, in not a creepy way, you and you alone. I mean, then it's like, well, two, I mean, double the fun, double the pleasure. Like,
Exactly. And so that's why I write them, because I think they're fun to write. They're definitely fantasy to almost everybody who's listening. And so I like to push that a little bit to make it extra. Well,
yeah.
extra, literally, that's the word, extra. I do write male, female solo, and because sometimes it does get a little hard to write a lot of ménage. And so I do like both.
I like reading both. I will say, I feel like it'd be a great excuse to like, just especially if you enjoy writing heroes. Like I know that there are some romance writers who are really drawn to like putting themselves into the place of the heroine, writing like they're really drawn to the heroine. But I know a lot of people who are equally obsessed with the heroes. Like it's really about the heroes and, you know, falling for the hero before they even necessarily have the heroine that's going to like be their counterpart. And so for me, it would be a great excuse to just like, oh, well, I've got all these ideas for heroes. Like I can combine a few of them if I write a couple heroes into one book and have it be a ménage story.
Yeah, you can get a lot of, yeah, that would totally work. I write first person, multiple POVs. So I shift from scene to scene from different characters' POVs. So I do write from the hero or heroes' points of view as well as the heroines. I know there's some books that it's heroines only, and we don't really know how the guy thinks, which is totally fine. And they're great stories because you just go along with the heroine and wonder if the guy is right there with you. Mine, there's no question because we know what the hero is thinking. And I think it also shows to the flaws that they have. I try to make my characters as human as possible, and no pun intended tying to these shifter stories, but really I like to have them be flawed and have issues and conflicts and problems that they have to resolve through their story, and have them grow along with the heroine. I want the heroes to be flawed enough where the readers sympathize with them, empathize, and they fall in love with them because they aren't perfect. They might seem it, but they really aren't.
And that's specifically why I prefer reading multiple POVs in romance is because I often find myself when I am reading a single POV, not that I don't enjoy those too, but I will say I think it's harder for me to connect with a single POV from the heroine's point of view than it is for me to connect with a romance where I do get to see all parties involved POVs, because I do want to understand what they're thinking. If I'm seeing a hero make a choice that I'm like, "Oh my God, where is this coming from?" in a romance novel, I want to understand that choice. I want to understand like what baggage or, tension he's dealing with in his own side of things that led him to make this choice, because otherwise I might get upset. I might get upset with him a little bit more.
Yeah. From a writer or author standpoint, I can think of a few books that are just single POV from the heroine's point of view, and we don't have the heroes at all throughout the story. I think those writers are exceptionally talented because they
Yeah.
have to push that hero through all of his challenges only through the viewpoint of the heroine. And so I think that it makes it very, very hard to pull that off. And I'm just impressed by their abilities to do so. I
Yeah.
haven't been able to or wanted to take that on. My stories are shorter than a lot, and so therefore, I have to move into I have the not true insta love, but close to it, and so I need to get
Mhm.
going pretty fast, especially since my books are steamy, and my readers want steamy stuff and they want it fast.
Okay, well, here's a tough question. If you could have, and you would choose to have, a menage relationship with any of the characters you've written, who would be invited to the party?
Oh, okay. Actually, that fortunately, that I have not been asked that question. I've been asked who my favorite hero is, but I've never been asked which two I would menage with. And so, wow, that's a good one. But fortunately, I know this answer. I My favorite hero is Gray in Strong and Steady.
Okay.
He just is just yay. I just love him. And so, if I was going to grab another, it would actually be Reed in the sequel Rough and Ready. So Strong and Steady and Rough and Ready. There are two books
Okay.
in a very two book little mini, not mini series, but a mini series of two books. And so I would take those two heroes.
And would they get along? Do you think they would be okay together in the bedroom with you?
No. And because they're very, very alpha male, they're probably my most alpha male heroes I have. But if I had to pick two, and if I could, if I could have both of them and they would share me, then I would go with
And
them.
they would just have to deal with it. They would
And
just have to deal with it.
yeah, they would just have to be okay.
I love it. Now, your latest release in the Two Mark series, Desired, is available as of the date that this podcast is being released. So, yay, congrats. Would you mind giving everyone a brief synopsis for this book? And I know that it's the third book in the series, right?
Right. So, as you mentioned, Rough, which is book one in the Wolf Ranch series, was your
Mm-hmm.
club book for October. That is the beginning of the Wolf Ranch series, and the Two Marks series is the spinoff for it. And so,
Yes.
if you've read the Wolf Ranch series, you can move on to Two Marks, which is a menage cowboy shifter series. It's based off of a pack based in Wyoming, sort of down the road a piece from the Wolf Ranch pack. And Desired is book three. Book one is Untamed, and it's actually a short free book on all retailers to get you into it. It's sort of a bridge story, so you meet people from Wolf Ranch, but you're starting off in the Two Mark series. So
Mm.
if you like Menage and you like shifter cowboys, then this series is probably for you.
Awesome. And are there more books to come in this particular series?
Yes, there are. So we're rolling into the holiday season now. So we do have one more in the works, and I'm not going to share more than that at this point. I'll keep you guys in suspense. But yes, there will be at least one more Two Marks book to come after the new year.
Okay, cool. Well, and then let's also kind of talk about, what's let's take a look ahead, because you're somebody who writes an average of like 8 to 10 books a year. So, I mean, I'm curious what's coming up for you, because I have no doubt you've probably got like multiple projects in the works.
Yeah, yeah, I do. I do write that frequently, which is pretty crazy when people talk about it. It doesn't seem quite so insane when I just do it. So Renee and I spoke about doing the Chumark spinoff series for Wolf Ranch, and we're eager to do that, and it's so much fun that we sort of wedged it in between our own personal standalone releases. And so I also have been toggling and releasing a solo series called Billionaire Ranch. There are 4 books in that series called North, South, East, and West. North was released in September, and South is coming out in December 7th.
Yes.
And these are male, female, and they are, I can't say they're dark, but they're a little bit angsty for me. But they do have hot cowboys and all the sexy times that I like to squeeze in there.
Is there a specific book from the, plethora that you've written that you would maybe recommend to a newbie Vanessa Vale reader? Like one book of yours that would be the one you would encourage somebody to start with before they, dive into your backlog of books?
Sure. Well, okay, so I would have to say if someone has not done any kind of cowboy romance stories, I would go again with Strong and Steady, which is sort of cowboy light. It was actually written as an MMA, which is a fighter romance book to begin with, and I sort of turned him into a pseudo cowboy so that it fit under my umbrella. So there's a little bit of Vanessa Vale trivia for you. So if you're looking for sort of cowboy light, I would start with Strong and Steady. However, if you're looking for jumping into something truly Vanessa Vale esque, I would probably say Teach Me the Ropes in the Bachelor Auction series. As you can guess from the series name, there is a Bachelor auction, and 3 hot brother cowboys are auctioned off in a charity event, and the heroines don't make it easy on them.
Oh, good. As they shouldn't. That's the kind of heroine that I like in a romance.
Right. And everything I just mentioned, all of those that I recommended, are all contemporary.
Yeah. And of course you have your historical Bridgewater series. So if people want to, check out the historical side of cowboys, they can do that too.
Right. Well, and the Bridgewater series was the first books that I wrote. And they are historical ménage. And so I did do a spinoff series called Bridgewater County, which is actually the contemporary version of the historical series. So I took the same area of Montana that I invented and made the present day town where it was originally founded by the people in the original historical Bridgewater series, and with a ménage themed town. And so I turned it into the contemporary town that it is, and the ménage based relationships still exist in that imaginary town. And so if you are looking for a crossover from historical to contemporary, then you could go from the Bridgewater historical series to Bridgewater County.
That's fun. What a fun idea. I like that a lot. Although I will say, I think I'm definitely going to dive into the Bachelor auction series next, because that's like a theme subtrope that's I'm so drawn to in romance. I'm a sucker for anything that has some sort of like bachelor auction. I don't know. It's just one of the things that I absolutely love reading in romance novels.
Yeah, and I agreed, because obviously because I wrote a series about it, but a heroine is buying a guy. I mean, how often can you do that legitimately and get away with it? And then as a writer, coming up with the shenanigans that come up from that, it's just, it's a lot of fun to be able to come up with all the different things that could occur because of that.
I love it. Well, as we segue into sort of the ending portion of the podcast, I do want to ask you the thing that I'm always curious about from every author, and that is there a story or dream project that you're dying to write?
Oh boy. Gosh, I don't know. I really started off with the Bridgewater series that really developed into 12 books and then into a world where other authors write into it. And again, the spinoff series of the contemporary Bridgewater County series. I really enjoyed writing a world like that, something that grew bigger and bigger. And my readers always write to me asking for more in that series. I don't think I'm really going to go back to it. Sorry, readers. But I hope that one of these days a brainstorm idea will come to me where I can write a new huge world like that, where I can write lots and lots of books in a series. I know it sounds kind of strange to talk about writing lots and lots of books in a series, readers are probably like, just write more. Well, sometimes a series, like for example, I'm writing North, South, East, and West, unless some of your readers write into me with suggestions for other navigational directions, I may be done with those 4 books. So maybe your readers can send me an email and give me some suggestions on a long-term series idea where I get everyone entrenched in this fabulous new world.
I like that. Yeah. No, I mean, it is interesting. And that's something I've noticed in the last few years, that is something that several authors are building, where it's sort of a world that they create, and then we bring in other authors to write under the umbrella of that world. And I find it really interesting because I think for a world to stand on its own, a fictional world to stand on its own, it really has to have so many characters and so many things that you love about this world to want to continue to read about it, let alone continue to read about it by 10, 20 other authors, not just the author who created it. So that I fully support and endorse this idea. And I'm curious to see what it is that comes next.
Thank you. I will keep you posted because I don't know the answer.
But we know one thing, and that is that it will have cowboys.
I feel confident in that as well.
Yeah, I do too. I mean, I was going to ask, do you have any plans to write anything outside of the cowboy universe? But I don't know if that's even something to consider. Like, I mean, like,
it's a tough one because my readers, I love them all, and I love that they love the books that I'm writing. However, they set high expectations from me for cowboy books. And I think if I wrote a mafia story, they might not be super psyched.
Okay, but mafia cowboys, I want to see it.
Okay, well, you and I can work on that one together.
Okay. We'll get that going. And it'll be a comedy too. That's right. I forgot. It's also got to be a rom-com.
Yeah, it's got to be a rom-com mafia cowboy MC Duke pirate story.
That's dope. I would read it. I mean, it's honestly, I'm that person where I'm like, just put it all together into one pot, and I would check it out because I'd be so intrigued to see, like, well, how does that work? So yeah, I think it can happen. We're going to start with just mafia rom-com cowboys and expand from there.
Sounds good.
Okay. Another call for another day, but
we should keep your readers in suspense for it.
Yes, we can't give away everything right now. So, Vanessa, where can all the good people find and follow you and catch up on all your books?
My books are for sale on all the retailers. I'm a wide author, so Apple, Amazon, Google, Kobo, Nook. Did I forget any of those big ones? And probably some of the smaller ones I can't think of off the top of my head. They're in different languages. So if anyone listening has English as their second language, I do have them in a number of other languages as well. I am at vanessavaleauthor.com, and you can find all my books there. For those of you who like Instagram, I'm at Vanessa_Vale_author. I'm sorry, when I made that, I shouldn't have put the underscores in. And for those of you on TikTok, come and see me and have a good laugh. It's at Vanessa Vale Author.
I love it. Well, and people can't see it because, as we're recording this, I only released the audio, but Vanessa has got one heck of a background right now in her screen that she's told me is, made an appearance in a TikTok or two. So I'm just going to say it's a very beautiful background that I hope to see in a lot more videos of yours.
It is a 7-foot tall banner of a cowboy, the hottest cowboy in the West. So,
7 feet tall.
He's not 7 foot tall, but the banner is, and he's just gorgeous. I have him up behind me because I just drool at him.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, like I said, it's a good thing that I don't have him in the background of every interview that I do. Otherwise, I would never get anything done. So,
well, and the good news is if I'm not wearing makeup or my hair is a mess, no one is looking at me anyway.
Well, I mean, not with that background.
No, exactly. No one would even know I'm in the video.
Oh God. Well, this has been such a delight, and I hope I'm excited to read more of yours in the future. Knowing that I can always count on a Steamy Cowboy or two or three in one book, perfectly fine with me. And I am excited to hopefully have some people reach out with is it slow cooker, instant pot, pressure cooker,
There you
pressure
go.
cooker recipes
Pressure cooker
because
recipes.
I want them. I want to know all.
You got it.
Thanks so much for listening. Boobies and Newbies is part of the Frolic Podcast Network. Find more podcasts you'll love at frolic.media/podcasts. You can follow Boobies and Newbies on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Boobies Podcast.